Good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Welcome back tonight. Again, my name is Jay Rothman. I'm the host of the show. I am absolutely looking forward to tonight's topic. But before we get to the topic, I want to introduce my co-host tonight. We have the man of the land from down under. He calls himself Evis Love Heath, coming in from Australia. Welcome back, Evis Love.
Oh, thanks for having me again, brothers and sisters. Big show again tonight.
We have Mr. Jeff Fasano, calls Nashville, Tennessee home. Welcome back, Jeff Fasano.
Looking forward to lighting it up tonight.
And of course, we have Josh J. Ritty, Josh Richard J, aka J Ritty, calling Southern California home, or SoCal. Welcome back, J Ritty, to Real Men Real Talk Live.
Thanks. I like that. Soul. Did you mean to say that? SoCal? I like that.
You know, when you live in,
I'll roll with that.
Yeah, you live in Sedona. It is all about the soul. Tonight's episode is episode 141. And tonight's episode is one of those topics where there's a lot of questions, there's some uncertainty, and we're going to do our best to really do some bring some clarity, not only to our viewers and listeners, but also to the four of us, because many of us have either been on the receiving end or on the giving end. And then tonight's topic, what I'm talking about is it's all about gaslighting, or is it just lighting gas? And so, Ev, in our production meeting this week, we had three topics that we put out there in the universe, and this was a topic that we all agreed on and we landed on. So since I believe this was a topic that you had put out there, I'm going to invite you, being on the top shelf of the grid tonight, to light us up, get us hot, kick us off, and drop us down into what does gaslighting mean to you, or is it just lighting gas?
Let's light it up, my brothers and sisters. And look, why I brought this up, because it is quite frequent still in a lot of relationships, whether that be platonic, whether that's with obviously your beloved, co-workers. You may not even realize really the importance and what's going on with this behavior that we term gaslighting within our collective. Now, gaslighting, it's been a term which was coined, funnily enough, from a movie in the 1940s, literally called Gaslight. And just from that example, a husband was basically manipulating his wife into making her feel like she was delusional, making her feel like she was crazy, where she actually lost her mind in that particular film. Now, in recent years, why I wanted to talk about this tonight is because it seems to have started to come above the surface again. Now, when we have a look at that term gaslighting, you may not even realize tonight some of your behavior within relationships may be that of this term that we're calling gaslighting. Gaslighting, at the very definition, is basically someone that may get you to question your perception, your reality, even your memories of the past within your life. Now, for me, if these red flags, and I said this in the video this morning, pre-warm-up for the show, any of these sound familiar, I want you to really listen into tonight's show, my brothers and sisters. So if someone's blatantly lying within your life, within any relationship, no matter what sort of something you've brought forward to the table, they continuously to lie within your relationship or within your connection. There could be a sense of manipulation going on. This could be termed gaslighting in the future. Someone focusing on your insecurities within a relationship. What you see with these gaslighters is that they prey unintentionally and intentionally, like I said, on those people that are lower self-esteem and have low confidence, which are made easier to manipulate you within your life. Gaslighters, they will tend to say something and then they will deny what they may have said when you confront them. So they keep pushing it to the side, make you feel crazy. Term can be actually going with also constantly negative, forcing negativity within your life, which will also talk of a modern trend that's causing toxic positivity as well. Now, the other couple of ones, they may even flip the script quite a few times when you actually you're being confronted within your life about these stories or something, a circumstance that you want to talk to this particular person. They may continuously flip the script, all the blame onto you. Now, that can be then turned and coined onto you about you're crazy. This is your stuff. There must be something crazy going on within your life to believe that. Does that sound familiar? Now, the last one I'll leave, and then we could, say a million other more. But the last one I think is really important at the real depth of this is they tend to trivialize your feelings. Let me say that again. They tend to trivialize your feelings. So they don't allow you to validate some of these negative emotions that may be coming up within your life. They may even try and put you on the positive trend vibe, which comes into what I'm talking about, the modern gaslighting with toxic positivity. But they trivialize your feelings to not validate them. And man, I'm going to be straight up from the get-go here. I've been on both sides of the fence. Was I aware that I was gaslighting? No, until I started to dive into my own self-awareness within relationship. Then I started to understand a little bit more about this term called gaslighting, because I was denying someone wanting their feelings being validated. They were quite too either high sensitive or crazy. These terms we throw are very loose, my brothers and sisters. Whereas now, from a conscious point of view, if I had that particular conversation again, it would simply be, I validate your emotions and feelings. It does not necessarily mean I agree with it. May we create some space, come back to this conversation next time. So this gets deep, my brothers and sisters. I hope that gives you a little bit more awareness about what gaslighting is.
Thanks for breaking it down, Ev. And thanks for also, too, having the courage to say you've done it. When we're asleep at the wheel, we don't know what we don't know. And that hurt little part of ourselves does crazy things. And so, I'll admit I've been on both sides as well. And so, that unawake version of me a long time ago did things to protect that hurt little boy inside and to make it not my fault. And so, yeah, I'm super interested in diving into this fully, because I'll admit I've had it in my life. It's tough to discern sometimes between just emotional manipulation and full on gaslighting. So I want to unpack all this tonight with you guys. I'm excited.
You reckon, Jeff?
I don't know. I'm still perplexed.
Yeah.
I just learned about this term not long ago. I had a situation in my life that I, to be honest with you, I had no clue why this person was even saying the things that they were saying and where they were coming from, because none of it was true. But one of the things, when I first moved to Nashville 6 years ago, I had some sort of relationship with a woman very briefly. When it didn't work out, she was saying, yeah, the people in this town already have your number, Jeff. They know that you don't care about anybody else but yourself. The word's already out in this town. And I'd only been here 5 days. And and I was listening to this going, what are you talking? And it was continuous. I mean, it was going on and on and on, for her reasons. And I was perplexed by it. None of it was true. And I knew it. It couldn't be true. And I was perplexed by it. And then just recently, maybe about a year ago, I was talking to somebody about it, and I said, and that person mentioned gaslighting. And I was like, what is that? So she went on to try to explain it to me. And then I shared that experience I had with that person. She goes, yeah, that's what gaslighting is. She was saying all of these things and that were untrue, trying to get you to believe it, to make you feel like crap because you didn't really give her what she wanted. And I went, oh, okay. I had never experienced really anything like that, to be honest with you. I've never experienced anybody saying that to me, nor even saying untrue things to somebody to manipulate them. I mean, I just don't understand that part of it, to be untruthful about things and saying things to manipulate somebody. That's weird and foreign for me. So that behavior was very foreign to me. I might have experienced another couple of times in different situations, but that was the only quote unquote obvious situation in my life.
Josh, I want to invite you to share some highlights from your perspective that you shared just before we went live and in a studio with us.
Yeah, I was curious, I wanted some examples. So I did, I was doing some searching before the show, and these examples of gaslighting really kind of, Ev mentioned a few beautiful things, but to add to that, are phrases, the gaslighter might use phrases like that never happened, you're crazy, and other people think so. It sounds like Jeff's experience. I'm sorry you think that I hurt you. Do you really think I'd make that up? You're just trying to confuse me. I'd never intentionally hurt you. Do you see the pattern here? It's this twisting of the victim's reality. It's making them question, I did that because I love you. You're too sensitive. That one hit home big time. I got that one in a gaslighting type work relationship where the boss called me out on something where I had confronted this person on some behavior that I didn't think was appropriate. And I called them out on it, and they flipped it on me and just said, you're too sensitive. And it made me question myself. And it was like, well, but no, I feel these things. Why am I? It's that invalidation of feelings, like Evis was talking about. And it's that twisting, bending of reality where you start to question you. And it's like, wait, no, am I too sensitive? But I felt these things. And so, yeah, I think that the theme, when I started reading through all these different examples of gaslighting comments, was this bending and twisting of someone's reality to manipulate them, questioning themselves.
To try to control them in some way, shape, or form, I
Sure.
guess. Yeah. To be in control, to feel like they're in control.
That's the other piece of the puzzle. Is it really about trying to control them, or just trying to feel empowered in a relationship where they don't? Because as I think, Evis, you said in your opening, the person who's doing a gaslighting in that moment is struggling with self-esteem. And so for them, it's about, if I in a very passive aggressive way put you down, confuse you, it gives them a false sense of empowerment. And so, I want to thank you gentlemen for acknowledging that you were both on a receiving and a giving end. And so that's why we do the show. That's why this show is Real Men, Real Talk Live. because we're not here just as teachers. We're here as students as well. And part of being students is being vulnerable, speaking our truth as we continue to navigate through this maze called life. And so I, to myself, it wasn't until I was really trying to wrap my head around how I showed up in my life and my own relationships. And I have no problem this evening saying that when I was unawakened, when I was living in pain, when I hadn't done any of my work, meaning I hadn't hit my own rock bottom in life, I was also at times, it was like a co-signing of gaslighting. I did do gaslighting. I also was on a receiving end. And it doesn't have to be one relationship. It could be many relationships in our life. We attract those types of, let's say, energetic exchange right where we're at. The law of attraction falls into play. And so it was a strategy on my end. I wasn't aware of what it meant. I didn't understand anything about it. Then again, I didn't understand much about why I was showing up the way I was showing up. And so the truth is that, yeah, I did gaslight at times. I will say this, though, is that I'm sad to have the true essence of my own truth to speak these words in this moment. But at the same time, you've heard me say this many times before, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that how I was showing up was just as this wounded adult man in most of my relationships. And so I think it was more of a subconscious behavior that I developed. It wasn't a conscious choice that I was making. I was not aware. I clearly was not aware of how harmful it was to people that I cared most about.
But isn't gaslighting a conscious choice by the gaslighter?
I think it can be unintentional as well, Jeff.
Yeah.
And what we're really talking about here again, brothers and sisters, is an energy exchange. So if even you just think of this term, what it actually needs to get a flame burning, if we're talking about this gas light, well, you may have the gas actual candle or whatever you may call it over there itself, but you've also got to have the flame or the fuel to light it up. So who is really the gas lighter? Is it the person getting gas lit, or is it them giving that gas lighter the energy to actually fuel the flame? See, this is someone that can't stand in their own power. Now, that may sound hard to hear, but if we are attracting someone like that with that sort of behavior, like I said, I've been on the back of this both ends, then we have to have a look at our own emotional intelligence. Because then that power struggle comes to an end when you actually are interdependent within the relationship, or you're still codependent, that you're able to stand within your own power and say, nah, this does not meet my values within a relationship. Something doesn't feel right here. So this allows you to broaden your awareness on whether you want to be within this relationship or connection or not, before the blame game starts to perpetuate. So there's got to be two people in this gaslighting phase, I believe. It's really interesting psychology, man. But sorry, Josh, you go.
No, I was just gonna say, I hear you, Ev. It's that was my experience, was like in that work relationship where I was being gaslit. It was like, okay, I see this as a pattern of behavior, and so I chose to remove myself. It was like, I tried to address how certain things made me feel, and they were met with more twisting of reality and bending of reality and questioning of myself, and I didn't like it. So I said, all right, I'm out. And that was my boundary with it.
I'm curious, Josh, how long were you in that relationship?
Well, that's the thing, right? We stay in it for money. We stay in it because we think we're trying to reach a goal. I mean, especially, you know, in the business sense, that you're on a mission together, right? To complete a goal or something. And so it's hard sometimes to let that go too, where you're like, I'm a finisher. I like to finish stuff. I like to complete things. I like to overachieve and knock goals out of the water. And it's hard it was hard for me in that sense to say I quit and throw in the towel. I mean, I don't quit. But that emotional abuse was not sustainable at all. And I tried to just stomach it and stick through it for the goal. And so, yeah, Jay, did I stay too long? Probably. It was only a few months, but the goal stayed first in my mind. And when I finally had enough, I said the goal's not worth it.
Do you think
what
I want to
the
switch
business
gears?
is or what the money is? It's not worth it.
I want to switch gears real quick, and I want to ask. I want to put it out here for you guys. Is it possible to be in a relationship where gaslighting is taking place, and once you have the awareness around it, is it possible that the two of you can actually cut it off, put an end to it, and can a relationship evolve, kind of pivot from an unhealthy, hurtful, harmful relationship to one where it can change or not? In other words, can you salvage a relationship that you've even been in for more than a couple months, as you just described, Josh, one that you've been in for months or years or even decades? And is it possible to turn off the gaslighting, to turn off the gas?
100%, brother. I believe it's possible. But the work has to be done within the individual first. Now, if you can help that particular person become aware of the behavior that they may be gaslighting within a relationship, then that allows them to actually start looking at their own behavior. Allows you to actually start, or them to start looking at their own decisions and what they may be actually doing with this term that we call gaslighting tonight. So then it's up to them, though, to go and do the work, and then by action come back with some more emotional intelligence and throw yourself deliberately into some of these situations and events. And through that action, has it changed, or is it still the same? Now, why am I speaking this out so clearly? Because that's what happened in my previous relationship. I believe that they can have a chance. I believe there is possibilities. But if they go away, decide to do the work, can't do it as an individual, how can you come together and make something work with that connection if you can't do it on your own?
Well, that's talking about, people doing the work for their own reason, finding out, if it's pointed out. Like, that's why I asked the question, isn't gaslighting done consciously? Like, I know in my situation, I know that was a total conscious choice by that person doing all of that because she didn't get what she wanted or whatever reason, saying all of those things that were crazy, trying to get me to believe all of that just because she felt hurt or whatever and couldn't express that. That's why I asked the question, because in my situation, it was conscious. And maybe it's happened a couple of times in my life, like that whole you're too sensitive thing. I got that many, many times in my life. You got to toughen up. You got to, get a thick skin and all that good stuff. But I never looked at that as quote unquote gaslighting. I just looked at that as, okay, but this is who I am, and it is what it is. But I think it's if you're asking that question, Jay, it's that's like an overarching question in any relationship. Whether it's gaslighting, whether it's berating somebody, whether it's passive aggressive behavior, whatever the behavior is, where the relationship is at a power struggle or whatever the relationship's going on, and two people realize that what's happening isn't really healthy or not working, or however you want to say it, then it's about each person seeking some help and doing some inner work as to, why am I allowing this aggressive or / passive aggressive behavior that this person is bestowing upon me? Why am I allowing that to happen? And then if I realize it's happening, why is that person actually doing that? Two unhealthy people coming into a relationship where it's about like, hey, let's do some work, let's let each person, but then again, you got to be willing to look in the mirror.
And that's the big question. The viewers are lighting up the panel tonight, and I'm reading some of the comments here, and I will share that I think many people have been on the receiving end of gaslighting, and as well as the give and take, and it takes two to tango, and we end up in a relationship with someone who does in fact gaslight. What role do we play in it? Why were we attracted to that energy in the first place? There's the next question I have then. Why are we attracted? And Ev, I think you kind of touched on perhaps one part of it, which is low self-esteem. Is someone that gaslights, a gaslighter, are they covert initially, do you think? Do they show up, in the honeymoon period where they're courting you and it's part of the manipulation? And then when they feel like they got you, that's when the sucker punch comes in, and that's when they start to light you up?
Look, it's all of that, brother. But the other thing is too, it could be also that gaslighter doesn't want to take responsibility for their own emotions.
Right.
So it's easier to friggin' pan this out to someone else. So this is us owning our role. And we talked about this, I think, last two shows, owning our role and our own responsibility with our own emotions, feelings. So then you're not going to actually project that onto anyone or anything without standing in your own power. Now, if you're on the receiving end of that, you've just got to check your energy, brothers and sisters. Is it driving you mental? Is there mental illness beside coming in with something that is termed, some of these phrases that are wrapped around gaslighting? If that's causing you to think, certain things within your life that's causing mental illness or some, emotional harm, then you may have to seek help, because there's a good chance that person's behavior is not obviously at the best of your interest. But at the same end, like we're saying, this is us getting in touch with our own emotions and feelings to know whether or not we are being gaslit. And then it's our responsibility of our own power. Do we decide to take that back out of the connection and keep our cup full, or do we keep pouring out this empty cup? It's an energy game. It's all energy.
It is. And I'll be honest, Jay, there's probably a few of the viewers out there too that were a bit triggered by you saying it's what is our role in having this weaker, lower energy, because at the time I didn't with this work relationship. In fact, that person built me up. They were like, oh my God, I'm so glad I found you. You're so great. This is amazing. Like, I've been looking for someone like you. They built me up first and then tried to break me down. And so I didn't come in this weak character. In fact, they, put me up on the pedestal and praised me in that position that I was in. And then the manipulation began. So it's twist. Now that person, I believe, was a narcissist as well. So there's a bunch of, like you were talking, Ev, there's a whole lot of layers. And so, but I just wanted to also come in with that in case any of the viewers were feeling like, but I'm not this weak character either. You know, there are the instances where they build you up first and then tear you down.
So
and
again,
twist things.
coming back to the question I asked just prior, is that if you're in a relationship and you are now aware that you're being gaslit, whether it be a work, a friendship, or an intimate relationship, it could even be with family, okay, or partner. What are your options? What can you do or to try to save? Is a relationship savable? Can you save it? What commitment would be needed by both you and the gaslighter, you as the victim of being gaslit? Is it savable or is it not? And I it's kind of a rhetorical question I'm asking because this is my sense, and I'm going to share my sense. I'm going to open up for you guys to join in here. Is that unless the individual who is the gaslighting partner in a covert or overt way, unless they are willing to surrender, unless they're willing to basically see what they're doing, understand what they're doing is harmful and hurtful, they're going to defend their behavior and they're going to deny your truth one more time.
Right.
So is it possible or not?
As long as that person, like I said, takes responsibility of their own emotions, behavior, and actions.
I think it might be possible if they both underwent 3-day-a-week therapy. I mean, behavior is on both ends. Like one person, their sense of self, how deeply they love, honor, and value themselves is not there. It's out there for a certain level, and so they don't know like who they are, and the other person probably also doesn't. I would imagine the other person has no clue who they are, and their self-love and their sense of self probably isn't there. So the reason why they need to do that.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay, so it could be both the same reason, you know, but one person is an antagonistic behavior, an aggressive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That says, I don't know who the hell I am, so I need to control another person to have them the way I want them to be because I don't have any sense of self and I really don't know what I want. And the other person who succumbs to it because their sense of self is diminished. So really it's about finding out, as we've talked about for 140 shows, going in, finding out who you are. How much do you love, honoring, and valuing? Who am I? Find that deep sense of self. So you have an amazing foundation and you know who you are. Then you know when somebody comes at you like that, you're going, what? That's not who I am.
All right. Well, I'm going to break it down. That's beautiful, Jeff Fasano,
Yeah,
dropping a mic in that moment here. But this is what's coming forward for me right here, right now.
What you got, Jay?
When we are in a relationship that includes gaslighting, we are in a relationship in a cesspool of pain. We've acknowledged that already right here, right now. If we are willing to, as a victim of gaslighting, receive that level of toxic behavior from let's say it's a partner, even our husband or our wife, boyfriend or girlfriend, we're willing to accept pain. We're in an abusive relationship in that moment. We're in a dual abusive relationship. One, receiving it from the gaslighter, but also we're in a relationship of pain within ourselves. Because if we loved ourselves enough, we'd set a boundary, and we'd exit stage left, as I said in many other episodes. We would not accept it anymore. And especially if that individual continues to manipulate and is not willing to acknowledge their behavior. Now, again, as I said early in tonight's show, if some of you are joining us late, at least 2 or 3 of us admitted it, that at some point in our younger life, we were the perpetrator. We showed up as gaslighters. I did. And it wasn't because I was a bad person. It was because I was a person in pain. And I had no idea that the pain was within me. I just didn't know. I thought it was other people's pain. But the truth is that I was hurting as much as they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, did I show up that way? I did. Do I show up that way today in my relationships? Absolutely not. Because I choose to live in love today. I chose to go on this journey, to come home, to return to love, so I can shred, so I can remove, so I can release all of that pain that I've been holding on to from the time I was born. Let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no reason then to show up as a gaslighter trying to confuse people to get your needs met. You see, isn't that really what it comes down to? Getting our needs met in a very, very seductive way.
Oh man, would a gaslighter even know what needs are? Those needs would be friggin', it seems to me. I mean, folks, I'm just learning all about this. So I'm having questions as you guys are talking about it with maybe more experience. But to me, if the person who is perpetrating this mental, emotional, and maybe even physical manipulation, because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about mental, emotional, and maybe even physical manipulation, which is so unhealthy. Would they even know what needs are? I mean, healthy needs. I mean, but then again, we're not talking about healthy behavior on either end. So, I mean, it's because that's what it seems to me. It's mental, emotional, physical, maybe even spiritual manipulation.
Yep. Have you been an active listener for some time here? You've been here, but you've been listening. What are you making of this banter going back and forth right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're diving in deep again about relationships, aren't we? So we've really got to understand the values that we need within a relationship, brothers and sisters. I mean, at this very depth, what are the values? List 4 for me now. Chuck them in the comments. What are 4 values that you would ideally like to see in a relationship? Let me throw a couple out there. Is it about love? Is it about trust? Is it about communication? Is it about respect? Maybe all those things. So if you think even just 3 of those 4, if they're not met and you're staying in a relationship that you're being disrespected, that you don't feel any trust, that you can't even communicate your own emotions and feelings, then like I teach in my Rainbow Serpent workshop, my brothers and sisters, from those very early ages when we start to learn about ourselves in this big, big world about relationships and about who we are, we've got to learn how people, or I should even say, how we feel around other people, not how other people make us feel.
There it is.
Can you repeat that, Ev? Can you repeat that? I need to hear it a second.
There it is.
It's a crusher, man, but I want everyone to really listen in and write it in the chat if you like. But really take into awareness how you feel around other people within your field, as opposed to how they make you feel.
But,
and that goes.
Go
Real
ahead.
quick, Jeff, that goes along with no one can make you feel a certain way. Were you
I was
just gonna say that?
exactly that. I was just, yeah. Yeah.
I love it. We're always so in
Yeah,
tune, Jeff.
yeah. I was going to say exactly the thing. Nobody makes us feel anything. What somebody will say or might say might triggers something inside of us that brings up feelings.
Yep.
Somebody's action will trigger and activate feelings or memories that will surface, but they don't make us feel that way, because that's a part of being a victim. Oh, I'm feeling sad and angry. That person made me feel that way. So you're telling me that you're a victim, as opposed to that person said this, that person did this. Oh, and these feelings came up in me when they did that. That's taking responsibility for the feelings that you're having. And then, as Ev said, how am I feeling around other people? What am I feeling as I'm around Jay, as I'm around Josh, as I'm around Evis? What am I feeling right now when I'm in their energy field? That is taking responsibility.
Here's the thing, Jeff. I understand exactly what you're saying. I heard you loud and clear. But here's the reality. If you find yourself in a relationship where you're volleying ping pong or tennis back and forth between the gaslighting, and you choose to step into the court, then you are going to feel like somebody made you feel a certain way. The fact that you are even willing to pick up the racket and get on a court and volley, you don't most likely do not in that moment have the consciousness and the clarity to embrace what you just shared.
Well, that's
Now,
why we're
what you're
doing Real Men, Real Talk Live.
Right. Well, what you're sharing is that that's coming from a healthy place, a healthy space. But if we have already been roped into to a gaslighting relationship where it's taken place, it's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to process it the way you just described it. Now, what you just described is brilliant. What you just described is spot on. As soon as we feel that somebody else is making us feel a certain way, we've given our power away to them. We are now disempowered. And that's exactly where they want us to be. But when you're in that dark, dense, harmful, hurtful energy, most likely, unless someone hits you over the head with a 2x4 and drags you out, you're not going to process it the way you just described it. But that's eventually where we want to land, is that when we're in a courtship and when we're dating, and I'm not even talking about an intimate relationship between a couple, let's say. I'm talking about courtship and dating, even with friendships, even in a work environment. And, part of what I want to share for tips, tricks, and tools tonight, because we're approaching almost 44 minutes into the hour, is that part of our responsibility as living more consciously in our life, as becoming that conscious observer, is really paying attention to the words spoken. And are they in alignment with the behavior? And if they're not, you may not catch it on the first date. You may not catch it on the first cocktail or the first walkabout, as they say down under, right? The walkabout. But if you keep paying attention as that conscious observer, not as that lapdog just wanting to be loved and willing to be loved by anything that's willing to hold you, you'll start to see cracks in that foundation. And then it becomes your choice to either disempower yourself or empower yourself. What do you make of that, Josh?
Beautiful. Everything. And I have two things before we pivot into the tips, tricks, and tools. One is I just want to elaborate on this, how we feel around others, and in those relationships, and in the relationships that are healthy, we should feel seen, heard, valued, honored, respected. And then I just want to also describe the feeling that the feelings that were coming up in me when I was being gaslit, which was that icky feeling right in here in your heart where you want to backpedal and you want to defend and describe and explain, and you're feeling like things are getting twisted and you're getting blamed, and it's not true, but you're struggling to that. It's that messy tangle that was the feeling of the victim of being gaslit. So if that's familiar to anybody, then yes. And it's hard when we're in the muddy pond. It's like swimming underwater in a muddy pond. It's hard to see your hands in front of your face, but pull yourself out, use your feelings as your guide, how you're feeling, and say, wait a minute, time out. This doesn't feel good. Let me pull out, remove myself from the situation, and examine maybe from a little bit higher level view rather than being in it. Remove yourself. Like Ev said, they took the time out to separate and to look at it. And we can do that as adults. We can pull ourselves away and examine from a little bit higher place where we can maybe see the picture a little clearer. And that's where we can start to untangle some of these feelings and say, all right, is this right or is this not right? Am I being manipulated and twisted in ways? But it's hard when you're in it. So we can time out and we can remove ourselves. And then the other part that I wanted to pivot into was, is compassion enough? If we are the victim, and we realize, we have the awareness to realize that this is an insecure behavior from somebody else, can we meet that behavior with compassion? And is that a way to salvage or get through it or whatever? And I'm not speaking from any great experience. I tried it with that boss situation and ultimately it didn't work. I tried to meet it with compassion and an understanding of where they were coming from, thinking that maybe that would help make it less painful, and that I would try to see that it wasn't about me. But ultimately, I just didn't like the way I felt, so I left.
Yeah.
Well, what's coming forward for me, Josh, and listening to what you just shared, is that when we find ourselves roped into a new relationship that has gaslighting playing out, and once we have the awareness around it, the truth is that the greatest gift you get is through the awareness of, by the grace of God, there again I go, I just got roped in to another toxic, unhealthy relationship that has at the foundation, the fabric, gaslighting unfolding. What happens, though, is that we tend to want to go like this. It's about them. Even when we leave, when we exit out of that relationship, we're still pointing a finger. And we still talk about what a horrible human being that person was. There's where we miss the gift. The gift is that when we're willing to show up and grow up, and you've heard me say that one many times, and really turn the mirror back on ourselves and ask the question, why was I attracted to that in the first place? There's always a lesson in the pain. And unless we have the courage to show up and grow up and ask ourselves, and not answer it from the egoic mind, but going deep, uncover, look at your own heart, look at your own soul, look at your own truth, and then ask the question, why did I fall into this again? What is the lesson that I didn't learn the last time? What is it about me that I need to learn so that I'm no longer a magnet for that type of human being. It's not about them. It never is. It's always about me and my relationships. And I'll tell you what, when we have the courage to ask that question to ourselves and then process it, you don't have to rush to an answer in 5 minutes. It can take 5 hours, 5 weeks, 5 months, sometimes 5 years. But once you understand, once you truly get the essence of understanding why you were attracted to that type of human being, when you understand the lesson, you can flip the narrative from blame to gratitude. Because once you have that clear gratitude, that you understand what you didn't understand before, there's freedom in that. There's freedom in that.
And the cycle won't repeat itself.
Right. You'll catch it really early on, like really early on.
So that's a great tip, trick, and tool.
There you go.
Look
I
at what is perpetuating in your life over and over and over again. What is happening over and over and over again in your life, and you're getting the same result. And I'm not talking, because there's plenty of things we do over and over again, and there's wonderful results. There's positive results. So we just keep on doing that because the results are wonderful and positive. But what do you do if you keep on getting in the same relationship and the same things happen? Or just not even let's take relationships out of it. Just things in your life. And you keep on doing it over and over and over again. It's time to look in the mirror.
Exactly.
Because you're the one who's perpetuating all of this.
There you go.
And one thing I just wanted to say too is that many people need to point the finger at another person, and I'm talking in generalities here, to give them a reason to leave the relationship.
Say that again, Fasano.
People need to point the finger at someone else so they can have a reason and justification for leaving the relationship. Now, I'm not just talking about romantic, I hate using that word, an intimate relationship with another. I'm talking about any relationship.
Exactly.
Do you have to always point the finger at them or the situation and say, this is why I'm leaving the relationship, and that's why I'm doing it? Now, as we were talking earlier, how does, that person, what is coming up? How do I feel? What's going on? I don't like this, and this is perpetual. This is not resonating and vibrating, and these feelings I'm not really enjoying. I think it's time to look at the relationship and see what's going on. And then it comes back to us. My question out there is, do you need to point the finger at something, someone, or whatever relationship you're in, and use that as the reason and justification for leaving the relationship? And then it stays that way. Because people have to have that reason, and that's
right.
Not taking responsibility.
You're spot on, Jeff. And I think what you're alluding to is we're in alignment, and that as long as we are in the blame game, we don't learn the lesson, and then we're going to repeat the wash cycle all over again. Now, the wash cycle I'm talking about is not only the dirty laundry, but it's the wash cycle of the tears, the pain that's going to come, because you're going to go, whoops, I did it again. Isn't there a song? Who sings that song? Whoops, I did it again. You got a good voice. Sing that tune right now, right here.
Do we have to say names?
So there's truth in all of that. With what time we do have left
Big
this
time.
evening, what I want to do is invite. I shared my own tips, tricks, and tools on. I want to invite each one of you. Jeff, you got anything you want to add to, or do you feel like you did your wash cycle right here, right now, and you're feeling pretty clean right now?
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I just wanted to extrapolate more on what you were saying,
Beautiful.
Jay.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Josh, Richard, Jay, Riddy. What do you got for us?
That was it for me. You know, I think I'm curious to hear what the two you guys think to close this one out. What tips you got?
All right, Av, you're up.
Yeah, I think just to round it up for me, brother. You know, we've heard quite a lot of red flags when you're talking about this gaslighting tonight. One thing for me from the get-go, we've talked about, like Jeff said, 140 shows deep. You've got to go and do that introspective work. Number one, you've got to go in. You've got to do the three things that I always say within emotional intelligence. Learn to identify your own emotions and feelings. Learn to then regulate and manage your own emotional feelings without the validation or the need of validation of anyone or anything. And then learn to express themselves within your own world. Be able to express themselves without the need of having someone to express it on or with. You know, you're enough to express them on your own. So when we're able to get even that more self-awareness within our own emotions and feelings, then we can go back in and ask ourselves, okay, what are some of these values that I want to see within the relationship? Now, if any of these red flags that we've talked about tonight feel like they're hitting home, write these down straight away. Take into account those people around your field, like we've mentioned tonight, that may be actually showing this and exposing this particular behavior in your world. Now, that third thing you may have to do is reach out for support. Reach out for someone. But if you are fully in your power, brothers and sisters, and I'll finish up on this, we don't need to be in any toxic relationship. Waiting on potential is a telltale sign of a red flag of a fantasy relationship. This is going to get better. They're going to change. They've got potential, believe me. I've heard them say it again, but I'm telling you, I reckon this time is going to be right. The only truth that it comes down to, my brothers and sisters, at the end of the day, is that you can only change yourself.
Boom. Boom.
Potential.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all been there.
Hanging on the potential of anything.
Yep.
Especially the oh, well, you know, they showed me that don't worry, I believe that they have a beautiful heart and they have the potential to open up, and then you're just hanging on the potential. That's great, Ev. That's fantastic.
I want to wrap it up tonight by, first and foremost, I want to thank you, brothers, for showing up tonight. Episode 141. This is a topic that we all can relate to. We've either been on the receiving end or the giving end of gaslighting in relationships. And one of my last words I want to share is around, it's our responsibility to teach people how to treat us.
Boom.
If we're waiting for them to show up for us because we're going to do more, we're going to give more of ourselves away, we're going to sell our soul to a human being that is in pain, and we think that we can change how they treat us by us basically selling our soul to them, meaning we keep giving, and we get back in return is a confused state of living in gaslighting, manipulation, covert behavior. Get the help you need. Seek counsel from someone that you trust. It could be a couple of men in this room. in the studio. It could be a therapist, whomever it is. Because ultimately what we're really talking about tonight is having the awareness that you're in it. And how do you get out is by first having the courage to acknowledge it to yourself, and then learn how to have the courage to set boundaries, healthy boundaries. Now, a boundary is just a threat if there's not a consequence for a behavior.
Yep.
It's just a threat. When you set a boundary, you actually set the consequence if it happens again. And then we have to follow up and follow through and honor the consequence that we established, that we set down in that boundary. Because if we don't, it's only going to take a couple times and you will be tested. You will be tested. And then when they net out that you're full of crap, when they net out that, she's just, or he or she, don't matter. They're weak. That's what the perpetrator is saying right there. They're just going to threaten. They mean nothing. And the truth is that's the truth. It's just an empty threat, an open threat. So when you set a healthy boundary, it's not for that other person. It is, in fact, always for us. It's for us. Because a part of us that hasn't felt protected is that little boy or that little girl within, the inner child. One more time. That's being validated that they're not worthy of love. They don't matter. They're not enough. And they're not lovable. We can show up as that parent of that little boy or that little girl within instead of loving boundary for them. Like you would if you have a child that you have birthed or you have been participated in a birth and they get hurt or they get wounded. What do we do as a parent? Part of our role as a parent is to show up and protect them, nourish them, nurture them, and protect them. So why are we not doing that for our own child within?
Beautiful.
I got chills because you see, I was guilty. I didn't know how to show up for that boy. I didn't even know he was there, right? But now we can't say we don't know what we don't know, because now we know. We just spent an hour and 2 minutes on this topic tonight. So if you're in a toxic relationship that includes gaslighting, assess it, make some choices, set some boundaries, and then have the courage to step out. If that other individual is not willing to look in the mirror and do some deep, deep work to understand why they are showing up that way. And with that, I want to thank our viewers and listeners for joining us tonight on episode 141. Are you gaslighting, or are you just creating
Lighting
some
gas.
Lighting gas. Right. And with that, I love you, men. You guys are my brothers from a different mother. You're my soul brothers. I appreciate you. I love you. Have a beautiful weekend. We'll see you next week on Real Men. Finish this out.
Jay.
Real talk.
Ah!